Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair agale, ni hao, junashumme, washmale. Ohio gozaima's, guten morgen, hola, boyo, privet, kaifa hal? Halashumachatore, ahlan wasalan marhaba. Buna, mucho gracias, swabi, abhalli kare aya. Hosh galden and ayo sayo, huyo mora, chivato, chihal, jod, kalimera, khairutan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Naila. Shuja.
Hello.
I happen to be Shahzad Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, a very happy, blessed Friday to each and every one of you. Please make sure that whenever you pray for us and our entire team and the well-being and the prosperity of our country, motherland, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. But first things first. Hello, Naila. Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Thank God it's Friday, TGIF. Am I right? Or am I right? I am so excited because today is the start of the weekend officially. But for some might be
and not just that.
Yeah.
I think I would seriously want to kind of congratulate Mr. Danial Sulehri, because it's your wedding anniversary today as well. So congratulations to both of you that you have made it to the fourth year, of your wedding, alhamdulillah, and many more years to come as well.
Inshallah,
may you have the best bond, may you have the best kids, and they listen to you
Ameen.
Every time you ask them to do something. So
Ameen.
Musa, congratulations to you. It's your parents' wedding anniversary.
Aww.
And for all of those people who are actually celebrating or observing their wedding anniversaries today, congratulations to all of you.
Thank you, Shahzad.
Thank you so
that
much.
was so sweet.
Please.
Most definitely,
why
the
not?
show kebab, after the show. All right, so we're going to get into it, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be starting off with the weather because it is slightly cold. And it's not slightly cold, I'll be very honest. It is pretty cold, at least for me. I am freezing my socks off. I am sitting by the heater continuously. And that being said, mainly cold and dry weather is expected in most parts of the country, while very cold in the upper areas during the next 24 hours. Patchy fog is likely across the plain areas of the Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and upper parts of Sindh in the night and the morning hours. So be prepared when you guys go out. There is fog, so be careful, drive carefully, walk carefully as well. And now moving towards the death anniversary of our ex-Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto. She passed away on this day, and this is the 17th death anniversary of Mohtarama Benazir Bhutto Shaheed, and she was the first female Prime Minister of Pakistan, and she is still the symbol of democracy, and it is being observed today with profound devotion and respect across the country. We have a special package that we've prepared for you guys at home and wherever you guys are watching us from, so please take a look.
Today, we remember a leader whose life and legacy continue to inspire millions. Benazir Bhutto, Pakistan's first female Prime Minister, was a beacon of hope and a symbol of empowerment. Benazir Bhutto's journey was one of resilience and determination. She faced numerous challenges throughout her life, but never wavered from her commitment to democracy and the empowerment of women. As Prime Minister, she worked tirelessly to improve the lives of Pakistanis, focusing on education, healthcare, and economic development. Her vision for a progressive Pakistan remains a guiding light for many. For women, Benazir Bhutto was a beacon of hope and a symbol of empowerment. Her leadership broke barriers, inspired countless women to pursue their dreams and fight for their rights. Her policies and initiatives aimed at improving the status of women in Pakistan paved the way for greater gender equality. She championed women's education, healthcare, and employment, making strides towards a more inclusive society. Today, we honor her memory by reflecting on her contributions and recommitting ourselves to the values she stood for. Benazir Bhutto's spirit continued to inspire a new generation of leaders and activists in Pakistan and beyond, especially women who see her as a symbolic figure. Benazir Bhutto's life was a testament to courage, leadership, and the relentless pursuit of justice. As we mark the anniversary of her passing, we remember her for her immense contributions in uplifting women and empowering democracy in Pakistan.
Although all of Pakistan is my constituency, but the story starts from Larkana.
May her soul rest in eternal peace.
Ameen.
And for each and every one of us, the brave lady of the soil has actually kind of left a very inspirational and exemplary life, for all of us to follow, and for all of those people who are out there, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe that, that such sacrifices should never go in vain as well. And since she happens to be the emblem of democracy in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, I truly believe that each and every one of us needs to sit down with our children, and we need to make sure that we share the story of Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto with our children and for the generations to come as well. Thank you so much, Sajeel Dogar, for this wonderful package and report on Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto Saiba. But while we're at it, ladies and gentlemen, today actually happens to be the International Day of Epidemic Preparedness, and while we're at it, we all, I think, Naila, we need to speak about it, that we all went through difficult times during COVID-19, and these are the things that we really need to kind of take into measure, that unfortunately, for the amount or the number of people who've actually lost their lives because we weren't really prepared for such an epidemic or pandemic to hit the world, I think we really need the governments, the stakeholders, the private parties actually need to come together so that there's more preparedness, there's more equality, there's more inclusivity, and that there's, so whoever is getting treatment should be actually on the basis of being non-discriminant as well. So on this day, ladies and gentlemen, the Premier of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Muhammad Shahbaz Sharif Sahab, has a message where he says that the day introduced in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic emphasizes the need for robust, resilient health systems and international cooperation to prevent and respond to epidemic. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has said Pakistan stands with the global community to emphasize the critical importance of collective readiness to combat health emergencies. In a message on International Day of Epidemic Preparedness 2024, he said this day reminds us of the urgent need for collaboration and swift action in the face of epidemics. The Prime Minister said on this day, Pakistan pledges to continue working with global partners to build resilient healthcare systems and ensure a safer, healthier future for all. He said under National Action Plan for Health Security, Pakistan reaffirms its commitment to achieve compliance with international health regulations. And to speak about it, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be the Professor of Infectious Diseases, the Associate Chief Medical Officer for IPC at Aga Khan University Hospital. He is Dr. Faisal Mahmood. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Walaikum Salam. How are you?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for taking out time, and that too on such an important day. And sir, in the wake of COVID, obviously we do know how the world actually did suffer. And unfortunately or fortunately, do you think that, us paving our way out of COVID and now we're actually getting prepared towards, unfortunately, if there's some other incident of such an epidemic or pandemic of viral or infectious diseases?
So yes, I think it's really important because the thing is, COVID was one pandemic, but this is not the only pandemic, and it has not been the only pandemic we've had in the past, and it's not the only one we'll have in the future. So it's really important that we start preparing for the future pandemics that may and will occur probably.
Exactly. And sir, in addition to this, since we are speaking about this day, now imagine that, where we spoke about COVID and how, our immunities got better and whatnot. Do you think that we are still, or the world is still at risk of such an epidemic again and over time? Because we have heard that, that these viruses or infections do mutate over time as well, and that our immunity might not be able to combat with them.
I think it's important to note that we probably won't have a COVID pandemic again. Our body has sort of learned how to fight COVID. COVID has also modified itself so that it can live with us a little bit better. But just like COVID was a new virus, we will probably see other new viruses coming up causing pandemics. And we've had one in 2009 when there was an influenza virus which caused a pandemic. We had one before that with SARS, which almost caused a pandemic. So these viruses keep coming in whenever we, as humans and animals, live close together. Viruses mutate, and then when a new virus comes, we don't know how to fight it, and that spreads through the whole population of people.
Exactly. And sir, now when we are actually talking about it as well, there's one very important aspect that we would love to touch upon. Now, imagine that for all of those people who were able to get vaccines in the COVID times, unfortunately, it looked like as if it was a bit discriminatory as well. Now, if we are to talk about equality, if we are to talk about inclusivity, people from urban centers, people from rural areas, do you think that the healthcare or the robust systems of healthcare that we're talking about, that we will be building, do you think that they are going to be more inclusive, that they're going to be more equal in terms of dispensing all sorts of help, medical help, which is required?
So that's a really, really good point. And I think the problem with any pandemic or any emergency is that it really brings to light inequalities which are already present there. So our health system is already not very equal. Some people get better care compared to others. And when there's a pandemic, this divide becomes even more apparent. And this is not just in Pakistan, this is around the world. We've seen this in almost all the countries where the underserved population were affected the most, while those and some populations were affected less. And I think pandemic preparedness does look at this to some extent, but this really requires an overhauling of the health system as a whole.
And where are we, in terms of if we are to speak about the overhauling of the health system? Because I'm very sorry, I know that it's going to be on a very lighter note, but it's a morning show, so I'm going to bring it in. Now imagine that we grew up, I mean, I would love to say it in Urdu, mitti khate hue sir, kabhi reet kha li, kabhi kya kha liya. So I think that the level of immunity that we have from the rest of the part of the world was really different. And COVID certainly didn't damage us the way that it damaged probably, if you are going to look at Europe,
The Western
America, or
societies,
the
yeah.
other continents as well. So do you think that it played a role, number one? And number two, if we are to kind of build a facility or the healthcare facility, where are we on that? Because you're sitting in Aga Khan right now, you are actually sitting in one of the facilities which happens to be the leading in the world. So where are we in terms of making sure that, okay, the future generations are going to be safe and healthy?
Yeah, your point is really interesting in terms that is our inbuilt immunity, because we're exposed to so many infections all the time. Did this protect us? Perhaps. COVID was really complicated. Pakistan was complicated also because remember Pakistan COVID came a little late. It didn't come immediately, so we sort of knew how to prepare beforehand. But yeah, probably this is one of the things that also protected us to some extent. And in terms of where do we stand now, actually, COVID, everything is a good thing. So one good thing about COVID is that it brought to light the fact that, pandemics can occur. We've been saying this for a long time, but when it actually happened, then people have now started taking notice. And the NH has made this 5-year plan, which is from 2024 to 2028, to sort of improve our emergency preparedness. And it includes many things. It includes communication, includes points of entry when people come into the country. It includes making rapid response teams, governance structures. So it's a very comprehensive plan over the next couple of years to sort of build up our system so we're not caught once again without knowing what to do.
Absolutely. A very interesting take that you've mentioned. And now understanding this current situation that we're in, given the fact that climate change is taking place and it's happening to a country such as ours, there is a mass internal migration that is taking place. And there are various, as we know, that there were floods that have caused various epidemics in localized areas such as cholera or various waterborne illnesses. How could we be more preventative, or what actions can we take to prevent these illnesses from spreading? And what are some countermeasures that we can take as well?
So I think what you touched upon is one step above the epidemics, which is emergency preparedness. So emergency preparedness is a bigger umbrella, and that looks at not just epidemics, but also emergency preparedness for floods, for earthquakes, for any emergency that's happening. And even for that, there is sort of a little bit of a crisis response plan that, and this is a different group in the government that has done this. And that looks more at displaced individuals, at communities. Now, the problem is whenever there's a displaced community, you always will have, unfortunately, poor health in those areas. And what's important is to know, number one, what are the infections they are at risk of, because depending on where this emergency is, the infection risk is different. And the infection risks will change. So initially you worry about some infections. Once camps get set up, then you worry about other infections. And the first step is knowing that you know how to prevent it. And then if an infection has occurred, then there are things we can do, or a pandemic has occurred, epidemic in that area has occurred, then there are ways to prevent it and contain it. But the most important thing I think over here is preparedness, knowing that these things will occur and can occur, and then preventing them as and when they do occur.
Exactly. And Dr. Saab, in addition to this, I believe that, it is of utmost importance for me to kind of ask now, imagine that, when COVID-19 unfortunately hit, because it's the very recent, and it sets precedents for all of us to kind of talk about it. Imagine that we had to get vaccines from around the globe, and it was, I certainly do not have any idea whether somebody could have developed this vaccine, or whether we had a facility over here in our own country to kind of safeguard our people from such an illness or a menace. Now imagine, do you think that, that doctors and researchers and scientists and people are actually trying to expand their scientific knowledge in order to kind of curb the menace? Unfortunately, if there's any other epidemic or pandemics in future, are we working on it? Do we have such facilities where there are researchers, scientists and laboratories working day in, day out to make sure that they safeguard the humanity?
So yes, they are. And I think one other thing you've touched upon, I'll mention right after this, but remember, pandemics are global. So it's not one country that needs to work on it, it's the entire world that works on it together. And there are, so for example, we feel that influenza may cause a pandemic. You may know that there is a type of a bird influenza, which in the US is now causing diseases in humans, which may cause a pandemic. So it's this global cooperation that we look at all the different areas, look at what viruses are spreading where, and try and identify which ones are potentials to cause a pandemic, and then start working on it. Now, COVID was a little bit of a challenge because it was a surprise to us. It was a sort of a surprising virus that came up. But understanding this climate change, understanding the interface between humans and animals, and how we mix, because a lot of these viruses come from there. But one thing which you really pointed out, and I think is important, is that unfortunately, epidemic preparedness is not in isolation. It's our entire sort of health system that needs to be overhauled, which one epidemic preparedness cannot do.
Exactly. And so one last question before we wrap it up, and that is that I still remember that once, when I was traveling to New Zealand, they actually opened up my bag and they saw my shoes, and there was a bit of grass underneath the shoe. And they were like, okay, you need to take it off, clean it off firmly, and then please make sure that you will be allowed to go or enter within New Zealand as well. How do you think that in such matters, we actually kind of have great control on our borders as well, whether which kind of people are coming in, whether what stuff is being brought in as well? Now imagine that if we go to other countries, we'll take imli, aloo bukhara, laddu, barfi, all of these things. So in the wake of such an epidemic or pandemic, how do you think that our border control needs to work to prevent, the people of Pakistan or anywhere?
So I think your example is good, but it's a little different. First is to know what is spreading in the world. So you've seen how when Mpox was spreading, when COVID was spreading, when Ebola was spreading, so then you tighten your borders at that point to identify anybody who may be bringing in a disease that we know is spreading around the world. So that's the first thing. The second is New Zealand is a little bit of a difficult example because it's an island, it's a very secluded area, so they're very careful about not human pathogens coming in, but plant pathogens coming in, or other pathogens which are not bad for us, bugs which don't affect us, but affect the environment. And that's why Australia and New Zealand are really, really careful. But you're absolutely right. We should ourselves be careful not to bring fresh fruits and vegetables in and out of the country, because it can completely destroy our crops if any of these other bugs from other countries come into us, or vice versa.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for being in conversation. Thank you so much for your wonderful, input on that too, on such an important day where the world certainly kind of eyes that we really need to be protected by all of these amazing people, scientists, researchers, laboratories, people who are developing all of these vaccines, because in days to come, we will always be subject, unfortunately, to such menaces as well, may it be an epidemic or a pandemic. I think one way or the other, if it's an epidemic, God forbid people travel, it's going to become pandemic as well. So I think the preparedness needs to be come in handy, and not just that, we really need to expand our scientific knowledge on that as well. But while we're at it, ladies and gentlemen, the former Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Manmohan Singh, dies at the age of 92. He was admitted to a hospital in the capital Delhi after his health issues. According to a statement from the hospital, the former politician passed away due to age-related medical conditions. Singh is survived by his wife, Gursharan Kaur, and their daughters, Upinder Singh, Daman Singh, and Amrit Singh. May his soul rest in peace, and patience for the bereaved as well.
Most definitely. And today we're also celebrating the birth anniversary of renowned poet Mirza Ghalib. Absolutely. His poetry just speaks volumes. So this is the 225th birth anniversary of Mirza Asadullah Beg Khan, famously known, and his pen named Ghalib. Now, Mirza Ghalib was born in 1797 in erstwhile India. That was ruled by the Mughal Empire at that time, and it was shortly before the British had arrived. He wrote both in Urdu and the Persian languages, and while his Persian writing was longer than his Urdu writing, he is remembered for his shairis and that he wrote in Urdu. Now, for the lovers of poetry, he is still a celebrated and revered poet, not just in India, but around the world.
Which is why on this occasion, हर एक बात पे कहते हो तुम के तुम क्या हो, हर एक बात पे कहते हो तुम के तुम क्या हो, हर एक बात पे कहते हो तुम के तुम क्या हो, तुम्हें कहो कि ये अंदाज़े गुफ्तगू क्या है, तुम ही कहो कि ये अंदाज़े गुफ्तगू क्या है भाई, हर बात पे तुम कहते हो कि तुम क्या हो, ये क्या अंदाज़े गुफ्तगू है. So remembering Mirza Ghalib Sahib today, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, while we are at it, I think there's an interesting bit to it as well, and that is that now I would certainly want to speak about, and you have that letter as well, where how there's a list of mispronounced words. You know, that's exactly something that we would want to put ourselves to, because, ladies and gentlemen, that's a test for the only English channel speaking anchor persons over here early this morning as well. So Babel has actually come up with a list of such words this year which were being mispronounced.
Absolutely.
So let's see if Naila can actually do justice with that. I think we're prepared enough, no?
Fingers
All right,
crossed.
let's do it.
All right,
what are the most mispronounced words for 2024? Go ahead.
So the first word that they have in their list is the U.S. Vice President, Kamala Harris.
All right. And people out there actually need to let us know whether we are pronouncing them right or not.
Are we saying it right? Are we on the same page about this? Is
I
it
think
Kamala,
I think
Camilla?
if I would say the same, I think I'll be like Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Kamala
okay.
Harris.
Let's-
See, again,
let's go,
it's
yeah.
different every time
Matlab
we say
samajh
it.
aana chahiye.
And then we have the Irish actor Barry Keoghan.
Yeah, that's
Again,
nice.
that is
that's
an interesting
spot on.
name.
Spot on.
Then we have the ever-renowned fast fashion company, which is Shein.
Shein, yes.
Shein.
Yeah.
I think
wow.
a lot of people are pronouncing it Shein, but that is Shein.
A lot of people
yeah.
are pronouncing it Sheen.
Shein, but
Yeah.
that's incorrect. It's actually Shein.
Shein, yes.
And then there is the weight loss drug, which is going around like candy these days. That is none other than Ozempic.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely, Shahzad. So then we also have the rising musical star, Chappelle Rowan.
No.
I didn't say
It's
that right?
It's Chappelle Rowan.
Owen.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Oh my goodness.
That's what my team told me, because early this morning I came in, I was like, okay, I need to prepare myself for that. But that's exactly what they told me.
I tried.
It's
I really
perfectly
did.
all right. Well, one more. There's one more as well, no?
Oh goodness. Then we have. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to take the risk, Shahzad.
All right, go ahead. Let me
This
see.
is. What is it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take a good look at it as
can't.
well. Yeah,
I can't.
It is semaglutide.
Smack.
Semaglutide, probably.
Semaglutide.
All right, whatever. You can certainly check
Yeah.
it and let us know as well. But this was an interesting bit, ladies and gentlemen. Insan jo hai wo khata ka putla hai. I think that's exactly what I'm going to say. But while we're at it, now imagine, so this is me and Naila enjoying our work today, that too on live television, making sure that we stay within our own boundaries and we entertain people endlessly, and that's exactly what our motive is over here at PTU World. But there will always be days where you certainly do not feel very great about your workplace, and it's because of the fact that there will be people around you who might not be very happy with you. There will be people around you who might want to pull your leg. There will be people about you who will backbite about you. Then there will be your bosses, because you every year, around Christmas time, you go to their room and you like, sir, mujhe tankhwah badha de. And then you're like, okay, we'll talk about it later. So
Next
probably
year, we'll talk about it
so
next year.
And you in that domino effect, what happens is that the next year, you're still there, and then you're like, okay, yaar, मैं भी किसी से phone करवा देता हूँ, something of that sort, and
The feelings just build up.
and this is very unfortunate that this is a culture over here, unfortunately. Now imagine not just that the women might not be paid the same salary as the men are. This is a debate that everybody kind of loves to have as well. But how does it impact your mental health is something that we would want to talk about. Now imagine all of a sudden there's this new administration and they think that you're a product of another lobby, they will remove you. So irrespective of all of those facts, they will not think about whether you were working hard, whether you were delivering or not. All they would want is that they would want to place their own people. Now, how will it affect your head is something that we will be talking about. And we're very lucky that we've been actually joined by a maestro, and a prodigy, and not just that, a teacher, a professor. Ladies and gentlemen, he's one of the best, and all over the world, I think that's exactly what he truly deserves to be introduced like. And he happens to be a consultant, a psychiatrist. He's a professor of psychiatry. He is Professor Dr. Mowadat Hussain Rana. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Great, absolutely. With Ghalib's birth taking place, but then, a bit of sadness with Mohtarama Benazir Bhutto passing to
her death anniversary.
Yeah.
her death anniversary. And again, congratulations to you.
Thank you so
also
much.
happens to be my daughter's
Wedding anniversary.
Wedding anniversary.
Really?
Wow. What's her name?
Congratulations to
What's
her
her
as
name?
well.
Let's give her a shout out.
Dr. Roop Zainab Rana.
Dr. Roop Zainab Rana, congratulations
And
on your
Hamza.
wedding anniversary.
And
Hamza.
Hamza.
And Hamza Bhai, congratulations to you guys, and yes, obviously I was invited to your wedding, by the way,
Yes.
but I was somewhere abroad, so I couldn't really come. But congratulations to you guys. Stay a very happy and prosperous life as
Ameen,
well.
ameen, ameen,
And with all of these things, you actually forget whatever is going at your workplace.
Yeah.
But coming back to that, Dr. Saab, so you've heard me out. You know how things are over here, unfortunately. First of all, let's get started with how does it impact one's performance? And does it only impact your work, and does it impact your, life with your kids, wife, everybody?
Let me be a little philosophical about it
Sure,
to start with.
sure.
So that, for me, this word is actually, the entire world that we live in is a workplace.
Okay.
We are here to live, love
Kya
and
baat?
work,
Kya baat hai?
you see. If nobody was working, there will be no word.
Yeah.
So this is our life. Work is a very, very integral part of our existence. The day we stop working, we actually die.
True.
Oh, goodness.
And so let's call this word, this body, this soul, this entire being a workplace.
True.
And that is when our attitude towards it would change. I think the second point is to understand that, let me link it with the word epidemic day, that today actually mental health is a pandemic.
Yeah.
There's a mental health issue everywhere, in every household, in every office, in every setting, on the roadside,
Yeah.
in the jungles as well as in the play fields.
True.
So it's a mental health word right now. This is the buzzword. So we need to be very clear that when you are working, let's now formalize it to a workplace as you are right now.
Yep.
in PDV. We do not recognize that people who are emotionally unwell at a given point in time can underperform, ill perform, or may not perform at all.
True.
While they will get away with if they had a typhoid fever, if they had a fracture, you would not be able to come and justify to everybody around that you're feeling depressed and that's why you're not at your best.
True.
And maybe people might not be able to understand.
Yeah. So we need to first of all accept that emotional workload, emotional burden can also make people underperform or not perform well. So the recognition of mental health as a challenge to workplace that people can bring in is the first need for the employer as well as the employee and the colleagues foremost.
True.
That if you're not feeling great today, let me chip in and help you out as if you had some kind of a sprain in your body.
True.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hold your hand. So please hold my hand if I'm not emotionally feeling great on a given day.
Exactly.
So
And Dr. Saab, this is exactly what we really need to identify. Now, imagine that there will be a plethora of people out there who are not feeling emotionally very well today. And still they are unable to identify and recognize. I think that's where if we are to kind of figure it out and find a solution for it, that's what we really need to do. And this is something that I would always speak with my father. He might be watching me right now. That it's always very important to recognize and identify how you feel.
Absolutely.
And only then you can get better. So how do you think any individual out there listening to you right now can actually identify or recognize?
First of all, I think let us get over this idea of being present at a place. These days you go to offices and even government offices, you have this, this thumb thing. You just
I don't like it.
It's not fun.
So you know why I don't like it? Because now I don't know the previous guy, I don't know where his finger was, before touching that thing. So that's why I don't like it.
So that's epidemic.
Yeah, it is.
You can call it an epidemic. No, but the issue is that you can actually be not absent, but not present.
True.
So you're in an office, we call it presenteeism.
Okay.
You can be present, but absent. And that is because you're emotionally, or in terms of your mental health, not well. And people who are actually not feeling great in an organization, but are present, can do far more damage. imagine a doctor sitting in a hospital because he had to be present, otherwise his salary is going to be, you know,
Deducted.
deducted
Oh,
on that day.
goodness.
So he's there, he's unwell, and he's seeing patients.
Wow.
The kind
Physically
of-
present, but mentally
And
absent.
imagine the problem that he's
Okay.
going to cause
It's
for all of those
damage.
other patients.
It's good, he's going to damage so many people.
Yeah.
So we need to first of all understand that workplace stress, workplace mental health issues need to be addressed, identified. The first sentence that a person would experience, and if he is honest, he can say it aloud to ears that are receptive to this sentence is, I am unable to cope.
Absolutely.
That's the word that people use. Mujhse nahi ho raha.
Yeah.
So there is this woman at home, again at her workplace,
Yeah.
and she's getting up in the morning and she's about to prepare the breakfast for her husband and children, gets up in the morning and says, Dekho, mujhse nahi ho raha. And the children and the husband need to put up their hand and say,
Okay,
Aap
Bill.
leetiye, aaram
How can I
kijiye.
help?
We will make our breakfast today.
Yeah.
And in fact, we will serve you the breakfast in your bed
Wonderful.
today, the
Yeah.
way you do.
That's
So
the first.
that is the acceptance of workplace stress, workplace mental health issues.
Absolutely. So I would like to just talk a little bit about the essence that you've brought up, sympathy
Yeah.
or empathy. But at this age that we're in, because I feel like a great deal of people have stopped sympathizing and empathizing with each other. As kids or as, you know, young people, we would have a lot of sympathy or empathy towards each other. How can we relearn these concepts?
Well, you see, probably empathy is a step ahead. Human beings, first of all, have a need to be visualized, recognized.
True.
You see, we pass by people in a corridor as if we don't recognize them.
True.
So
Yeah.
even if you're walking in a corridor, if you're walking on a roadside, and you just look at people into their eyes and they feel recognized, you enhance their mental health.
True.
You enhance their well-being by just recognizing them and then nodding your head or saying Assalamu alaikum. You know, that's a recognition that makes people feel great. Then the second thing is to be valued. Human beings want to be valued. You see, we think that the person who served me this wonderful cup of coffee just now,
Sohail bhai.
Sohail bhai, I am so grateful to Sohail bhai. He perked me up with a cup of coffee. So if I didn't say thank you to him, he would feel that he's not valued. If I just take it for granted that, you know, okay, so I'm a
Yeah.
guest here, so he's given me. So when you value people, you improve their mental well-being and mental health. Recognition, being valued, appreciated for what they have done. But having said that, while we're talking about Shahzad, the workplace, it's very important to also bring in the concept of accountability and training.
True.
You see, too many people today are getting away for doing nothing or doing things badly.
True.
Which is equally worse, actually. See, one of the reasons of workplace stress is when you are not well trained for your job. People who are not well trained for their job actually are more stressed.
पता ना चल जाए
Yeah.
कि मुझे तो पता ही नहीं है कैसे करना.
आपके काम आता नहीं है.
True.
You see, so if you are not skilled for what you are doing, you are likely to be more stressed.
Yep.
So there is a need to be workplace to become accountable, a place where you're accounted for. If you're not doing your job well, somebody's going to put his hand up and say you've not done it well.
True.
So we try to be too positive these days sometimes. So somebody needs to put his hand up and be unpopular and say, look, you've not done this well.
True.
But not stop here. We need to say, okay, you've not done it well, but this is how you're going to do well.
True.
So we do a lot of criticism. नहीं आप बिल्कुल फजूल काम करें. भाई अच्छा कैसे करना है वो भी तो बताओ ना फिर. You see? So we've given up on training. Then is the culture of hire and fire.
Okay.
See, we're catching up with the American culture of hire and fire without recognizing that the country has massive number of jobs.
True.
In a country like Pakistan, where a person has gone through the mill and worked up, you know, a lot to reach that particular ladder and reach to the position. One day he doesn't do well. Because of that culture, he's fired.
True.
So we need to understand that in a country like Pakistan, you do not hire and fire people like as if you were in America. You do not, you recognize that this person has done well, maybe lay him off, then provide an opportunity to him, that you train yourself better now and we will get you back.
Exactly. You know, so how we use it in, you know, in government jargon, and that is OSD. OSD is, it's not even good.
OSD is horrible.
It is horrible.
It is recognized as horrible. Although if you use that OSD, I mean, how naive that you actually get paid for doing nothing.
Yeah.
See, instead, if you had a remedial done, you know, so when you put people on OSD, before you fire them, put them on a remedial.
Exactly.
Give them an opportunity to train themselves for the recognized failures that they have done.
And thank you so much, sir, for wrapping it so beautifully well as well. And number one, I think I would want to certainly give you a compliment over here, how you've driven the show yourself, that this needs to go out. So thank you so much for doing that as well.
Thank you.
And people who are out there, you know, so meanwhile, you know, there's this time where it's so tough in your life, please make sure that you do not burn yourself and, you know, trying to kind of get back to where you want to be.
And
please
be
make sure,
easy on yourself.
yeah, and please make sure that
Yeah.
you work on yourself rather and improve yourself. I think that's exactly what is required. But thank you so much, Professor
Thank you
Zam,
so
for being
much.
with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And
Thank
it's always wonderful to have these conversations with you. A maestro, a legend himself, alhamdulillah.
Absolutely.
I think he's a household name, probably in this continent, you know. So I'm not going to say Rawalpindi or Islamabad, in this continent, all over the world. But while we are at it, they have got another good news for people of Turkey as well. I think they might be aware of it, but you know, let's hear it out. So imagine that Turkey is ready to restore the Hejaz railway line between Istanbul and Damascus. The Turkey has
fun.
announced plans to restore the historic Hejaz railway, a project originally built to Ottoman Sultan Abdul Hamid II to connect Istanbul with the holy cities of Makkah and Medina. This ambitious initiative aims to revive the approximately 1,750-kilometer railway, which had been partially operational until the early 20th century. The restoration is expected to enhance regional connectivity and strengthen economic ties between Turkey and its neighbors. By reviving this historic route, Turkey hopes to promote cultural heritage and facilitate easier travel for pilgrims and tourists alike. So I think now the idea would be to go to Turkey first,
Yeah.
Istanbul, and then travel to Makkah and Medina.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that should be my goal for next year. But there's also something I want to share with
Sure.
you. Did you know that the 9th Pakistan Open 10-pin bowling championship happened recently, and Danial Shah had won the singles and graded titles. Amazing. Congratulations, Danial Shah. So Danial Shah secured the title at the 9th Pakistan Open 10-pin bowling championship in Karachi, setting a new national record with the perfect score of 300. Amazing. Again, congratulations. The 7-day event featured competitions on various categories, with Danial Shah winning the singles and graded titles.
Congratulations to Danial Shah and his entire family as well. Pakistani athletes doing wonderfully well all over. But while we're at it, since we were talking about, you know, workplace and mental health and how we really need to kind of improve that, how to kind of make sure that we're prepared for epidemics and pandemics. Now I imagine that we're going to prepare yourself for something other than that. Now, for us, it is very important that we actually kind of understand what domestic violence is. Most of the time, whenever we speak about domestic violence, the first thing which comes to our mind is that unfortunately it's the woman who is actually subjected to that. And that might be the case because the majority might be women in our part of the world, but we really need to understand what causes domestic violence and what are the solutions for that.
But there's also an element that we also need to discuss.
Okay, what's that?
The mental element, the mental aspect, the concept of mental torture that goes on in such situations. And that's why we have our wonderful guest with us, Shahzad.
So which is why, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by Dr. Noreen Saher. Assalamu alaikum, madam. Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. You actually hold the position of Associate Professor within the Faculty of Social Sciences at the International Islamic University in Islamabad, Pakistan, with a distinguished academic career spanning over 24 years. Assalamu alaikum. A very warm welcome. How are you?
Good morning.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, madam, for joining us. And you actually go, you know, delivering lectures all over Europe as well, and you're making Pakistan proud. So first of all, please help us understand domestic violence.
This is, this is something which is actually the unfortunate of the society. And it's a very holistic and dynamic phenomenon.
And very generic
and,
too.
You know, it's, and I would like to, use the definition of World Health Organization because it's very holistic. It says that, domestic violence or violence is actually the resultant of various socio-economic factors. But this is very interesting, that it is not a cause, it's actually the resultant. So there are so many things around us which actually create or cause, generate domestic violence and
what
violence.
are those things, madam?
Again, I would actually, I am a social scientist, so I would like to use various paradigms to discuss.
From anthropology?
From anthropology, from interdisciplinary management actually.
Sure.
We are quite lucky that we have Syed, a scholar in Pakistan, in LAMS. His dean, he has developed, a wonderful, model with a co-worker from Turkey. You've been identifying, Mustafa. So they had talked about a relational model. It's a very dynamic model. It says that this phenomenon, which is called domestic violence, it's very holistic. It has 3 layers: micro, meso, and macro. Means there are individual factors, there are institutional factors, and there are societal factors. Whenever we talk about, domestic violence, our focus is more on individual level, but it is more dynamic.
Okay.
For example, socioeconomic means distress, anxiety. It creates, violence at micro level.
Okay.
But there are institutional factors as well. For example, patriarchy, hegemony, gender.
Gender inequality.
Yes, gender.
Yeah, there's so many things.
And on societal level, there are,
And thank you so much for making us understand that, that it's more on a macro level than on a micro level, and all of these factors actually contribute towards you being anxious, you being depressed, and all of these issues as well, which is why earlier we were actually talking about, workplace hegemony, how people can actually be very unhappy because of the workplace environment and whatnot. But while we are at it, and we have identified that it's more on a macro level or a meso level than on a micro level, how do you think that we can avert, first of all of these causes to kind of give us anxiety, depression, and be subject to violence?
In order to respond to this question, I would like to say, I would like to actually come up with the model of Stephen Covey, from his book 7 Habits of Effective People. And we always, but as a social scientist, I believe that we all, whenever we look at a problem, we are looking for a solution, we always focus on there.
Yeah.
Actually, we need, if we really want to handle some problem, we need to start from here.
Yeah.
As per the model of what I would say, Syed, we need to start from micro level. And Stephen Covey says that there are 3 circles around us. We have a bubble, and there is the 3 circles. The first circle is the control circle.
True.
Charity begins at home.
Yeah.
The change you want to see in the world, it starts from you.
True.
So let's just start from the prime bubble. What are the things which are in my control? I think it's my mood, my socioeconomic issues, my home, my family. So I need to focus on myself.
But madam, if that was the case, now imagine if that was the case that that I start to control whatever is under my control. Now imagine that anxiety and depression and all of these things are actually not under anyone's control. No, people do say that I can overcome that, and there are people. Now imagine that if I go and speak about my grandfather, I've never ever seen him depressed or anxious, because they never let all of those feelings out, and they've controlled them, and they had stronger minds or brains, and then a stronger self-control as well. Now I think that with more awareness, what has happened is that this is a buzzword. Oh, I'm having anxiety, I'm having depression, and there's this power of words as well. Now this is exactly something which my father told me the other day, that whatever you utter out of your mouth will actually come back to you. So how do you think that people really can avert all of these feelings by not using these words?
Excellent. Shahzad, your question is actually, it's self-explanatory as well. It's a wonderful question. I would say, my perception, the layer, the curtain in my brain, it is everything. And it's not, something individualistic, I would say. It comes from my experiences as well. It's not something in isolation. But my perception defines everything.
Okay.
We've been in a program with Michigan State University. It's a leadership program, and they've been actually giving us a a very holistic, dynamic training. And at the end of the session, they've been asking, getting our perception that what you have gathered from this course. My answer, and like many other colleagues, that I have rewired myself.
Yeah.
The only thing I can do in this world is, the word full of conflict and anxiety is rewiring my brain, my perception. And there is another, a concept that I would like to share with you is, let's define our body as a more holistic phenomenon. For example, if I'm saying I'm just one Noreen, it's a physical self, this is just one dimension. I would like to suggest you, let's just define ourselves in 4 domains. Physical Noreen, physical Shahzad and ma'am, and then emotional self, and then cognitive self, and there is a spiritual self. And if every day we are working on all these dimensions of our personality, we are working on our physical self, our emotional self, our cognitive self, and our spiritual self, we are doing with all the negative stuff, and we are enhancing, developing our positive self. Then what will be there, that if one self will be down, for example, if I'm down with health,
Shahzad 1 and Shahzad 2. Yeah.
if my physical self is down, as the Dr. Sahab is saying, then my emotional, my cognitive, and my spiritual self is there, that hold up myself.
And thank you so much for saying that as well. And for people who are out there, I think it was very earlier in my life that I decided that there are 2 Shahzad in my brain.
Yes.
So there's no Shahzad number 1, there's Shahzad number 2. Shahzad number 2 does not have very good ideas most of the time. So Shahzad 1 really needs to kind of dictate and overtake as well. So I think these ideologies will actually help you. And
but I would say there are 4 Shahzad.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. And this is exactly that bit of rewiring where ma'am was actually speaking about it. But ma'am, since we are only left with 1 minute, I would want you to give out some comprehensive solutions to people who might come across domestic violence and how they can avert it.
I would like to identify that it's a vicious circle. It keeps on going. For example, somebody has actually come up with a violence, then it keeps on going. Number 1, we need to break that circle. Vicious circle of violence. Number 2, we have 2, again, I would say there are 2 types of violence. One is out of hatred, and other can be, it's symbolic violence out of love.
Okay.
Violence is actually the game of politics, power and control.
All right.
We would like to control other people out of negative violence. Let's just come up with a positive violence, that is love. We can more influence people with love rather than hatred.
Thank you so much, Roxana. Thank you so much for being with us. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, we're really short on time. There's only one message that I'm going to give away today, and that is, when you take on a task, finding the best ways to achieve the desired result is always your responsibility. So please make sure that you're responsible for whatever task that you've taken for yourself. Until next time, thank you so much, Naila.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, each and every one of you. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. As Naila said, TGIF. Until next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning. Juma Mubarak. Thank you so much. Thank you.